Hello and welcome to Dell's Gaming, and this is finally from the depths again, where I'm now going to be looking at some of the other changes in the latest update, and I'll put the actual version number I'm running on in the description and or the comments, a description or the title here. But basically this is all going to be about aircraft. The changes I've seen in aircraft, and there's a couple of areas I want to have a look at. First off is the jet engines. So for the testing, I'm just going to use these prefab hulls. So there is two little hulls that have been created under the prefab. So if you're in build mode under hull prefabs, you've got the prop plane and the jet frame. And I'm going to use them to do a quick little build. So these are little 15, took me 15-20 minutes or just to set up, so we can just compare some of the details of the various engine designs and advantages of everything, and just see what the fuel usage, power, etc. is of the various basically engine designs you can have now. So let me just get into the first plane. So first off, I'm in a little simple weapon armed prop fighter, and if we bring up our HUD, you can see that the speed is running about 64 meters a second. So this is, I wouldn't say top speed, but close to as much as you're going to get with the dedicated heli blades. They're running at maximum with motor drive to 10, and it's using about 132 of the engine. And this particular engine, nothing special, just carburetors on a piston just to do this, just to keep it down. It's running at about 40 power per fuel, so that's about, for all of these, why didn't they use fuel per second? Because that's how the jet engines will measure their system. So this is running 3.23 fuel per second to get 64 meters per second. Nothing special about this little plane, but it could act as a starting point, and also sets the sort of speed benchmark for our our starting point for speed. Most bombers, actually, you wouldn't be as aerodynamic. This is reasonably aerodynamic. It's got a, I think actually, let me just look, its aerodynamics is 3,200, I think, yeah, 3,200. So it's reasonably aerodynamic. You could make this a bit more aerodynamic. A lot of these items on here are not necessary. You could clip the wings a little bit, but it gives us a starting point for our fighter type of prop plane. So let me now go and have a look at the a quick build of the jet airplane. So this is my quick jet fighter. So it is armed with missiles. So some of the cost of this, when we start looking at cost, you've got to allow this is got missiles armed. So whenever I build a ship, I can't make it so it's totally defenseless. It's also got some simple cannons, but nothing special. Okay, so this is just using the standard jets under air, and then the huge jet engine, because it looks reasonably, it fits in this frame design. But we're only getting 64 meters a second out of this particular jet design. So to make this faster, you'd either have to put some more jet engines in, as example, you know, start putting them around here. This would make it, it would obviously increase the fuel usage, but we're going to leave it with this basic design. So this is the very absolute basic jet for this airframe we've got running here. So 64 meters per second. Engines wise, it is using a couple of we're in here, it's using, if I just do actually like there we go. So it's using a couple of fuel engines in there with just a simple injector installed on it, and exhaust, nothing special at all. Let's just get that back to normal. There we go. So this particular jet cost 12,000, whereas I didn't show it, but the prop fighter only cost 2,600. So expected. There's a lot more metal here and it's got a lot of missiles. But yes, we've got the speed. It looks like it has got up to 67. And its drag is 4,000. So the drag is a little higher on this, by the looks of it, than the prop plane. Again, I could change that a little bit, make it a little less draggy, cut some of these items off, but this is all for testing for fuel. So fuel usage for this, those two engines are using 9.9 fuel per second for the amount of power, because you can see we need substantially more power here. It's about 350 power, give or take. Actually, what is the engine giving out? So the current power is 180, so that's 360. I was close. So 360 power is needed, and as you can see, 4.97, two engines. Yes, you could make one engine that make it a little bit more efficient. I was just doing some things to space saving, but I don't think this is actually a very efficient design, although it looks okay. So next, what if we used the new custom jet engines? They're not new. Don't get me wrong, they have been around a few dates, but let's go and have a look at what we can do with the small custom jet engine. So this is under small jet engine, and we put a controller, and this first version we've just got a compressor, a combustor, exhaust and small intake. So cost wise 12,100, so it's, you know, similar to the other jet. I think we should have a similar drag back is actually only showing 2,400 on this one for some reason. So I don't think I've changed anything, but for some reason it thinks the drag is better. Oh well. I'm not sure why that is. Those other jets must have been adding some drag somehow. Anyway, I'll have to go and have a look at that. I'm not sure why that is, but speed wise we are at 55 meters a second. And this is, we'll just get to the view so you can see the engine. You can see that this has just one of each component. So this is a very basic custom jet engine, and if we look at the controller to get our details, it's using 2.5, so that's 5 fuel per second to get this speed of 55 for the moment. So next is to try and increase the power a little bit. Now one way is to make the jet engine bigger, but you can also add the little extras to each of the components. So here we're going to add a fuel jet injector, which will just substantially increase the thrust but at extra fuel cost. Then we'll add a little compressor to make the air a little bit better on the compressor side, and then a small intake which increases the airflow. So you can see efficiency bonus 2.5 because of that, and the compressor is giving us a efficiency of 36 because of that little extra compressor, and the fuel is giving us an extra 800 base thrust but at plus 1% fuel use. So now we have an overall fuel use of 7 fuel per second, and we're up to 65 meters a second. So we're about where we were with the jet and the fuel. So we're up to parity now with that type of design, and cost 12,366. So it's about still a little bit under, you know, roughly the same cost, nothing substantially different to the jet engine, but we actually are more efficient than using a combustible engine and the normal jets, if you see what I mean, at this time. So what if we now increase the size of it a little bit? So we want to get a bit more power again, so now I'm going to double the size of this engine. So I basically doubled the size of the small jet, and added the fuel injectors and compressors and an air intake, so effectively everything's doubled on that, and we'll get up to a nice 86 meters a second now on speed, so a little bit higher, and we're running at 14 fuel per second. So that has cost us a lot of fuel to get up to that speed, but it's starting to get into some nice speed territory, and we're certainly faster than you could get with propeller planes or the standard jets. Now the next stage is to make this, what about if we make this as basically as big as we can within this area. Now we will have to remove some items, because one change is needing space for your jet. So the air intake, you can see we've got is 100%, and that's because we've got enough blocks in front of it. If you haven't got enough blocks in front, so if we put a block straight in front, you'll notice that the air intake is now at a lot lower, basically. That's just where are we? Yeah, efficiency is, clearance is 0, so efficiency is 0.7, and also there's these air intakes also have a clearance percentage, and that's brought our speed down. So we want to keep good clearance in front of the air intakes, etc. So let's just take that out. So let me just build up this long engine, and we should be see what we can get. So I've now pushed the small jet engine all the way through to the front, so it's got air clearance on the front to get the a bit of extra efficiency. I've added plenty of add-ons to the inside. I haven't changed the structure. Where there was a gap, I've added either compressors or the extra jet engine injectors. So now we've got up to a nice 156 meters a second, which is reasonably respectable, and it's running a fuel efficiency of about 37 fuel per second per engine, so that's about 74 fuel per second. So it's obviously moved up considerably from the 86 we were at previously, and the cost isn't that much, 17,498. We were at 12, so it's added a bit to the cost, but obviously that fuel usage is high. We've jumped from basically the equivalent to the other engine was 7, and now we're at 75, so at 10 times the fuel usage, which is sort of understandable. Now I quite like the looks of this, because you can have all of this on the outside. You've also got a bit of protection, and it's down to 4 more function. I could start removing blocks and to fit in the extra components. Some of them might stick out, so I could start taking blocks off, say off the top here, and start putting my jet components on the top, but I don't think it would look that nice, to be totally frank. This is a nice looking in keeping with this particular airframe. So what if we're not worried so much about looks, or we want to go for a slightly more Heath Robinson design, especially with the large jet? So let's just jump into an example with the large jet engines. So this is a starting very simple one of each, nothing, no add-ons at all on this, because we just don't have the space without destroying the frame of the plane significantly. We're still doing a 112, I think it goes a little bit more at times, but 112 meters a second, and we're using about 24 fuel. It has cost more already, even at this basic level, but that is understandable. Now to increase this, we're basically going to have to basically destroy parts of the plane. But we'll go with it and see what we can do. So let's see if we just simply double the size of the engine. So there's a bit of space that would need to be filled out, but yeah, I'm not worried about that at the moment. So we're up to 138, so that's not bad. Fuel rate is actually at 48 fuel per second, and vehicle cost is 15,000, so it's still respectable. Yeah, that's not too bad. It's scaled reasonably. I've not added any of the intake add-ons or compressors, because it would start totally destroying the look of the ship or the vehicle. But I'm going to increase it one more. We'll take it out and fill out, say, to these blocks. Yeah, I can do that, I think, and give it a hole for its intake. And let's see what we can do as a little bit of, doesn't look nice, but let's see if it will work type of scenario. So filled it up again, haven't added any boosters or extras at this time, so we're up to a good, what's that, 181, 182 meters a second speed. Pretty good. That's quite comparable with quite a few enemy aircraft you could come across. Fuel usage though, 72, so that's 144 fuel per second, so that's a significant increase. And 22,000 cost. Cost isn't a big problem, I think, on this, and whoops, we would need a bit more. It's decided to go up into space, so we would need some better controls, it looks, than this, but that's not I think this particular airframe design and the number of controls I've got here are not suitable possibly for this level of aircraft. Might just need some controller set, either more controls or even going and changing the pitch angle on these a little bit if it's a little nose heavy. Let's see if that does it. I think don't need to look at that now, because this is not a design that I would personally go through. Don't like the looks of it. This would be suitable for a, basically if you scaled this up so that it was more size for the small but in a bigger jet, you see what I mean. I wouldn't use this for a small jet, I'd use this for a big jet. Okay, take of what I've seen just going through these is the small jets, you can get a decent amount of speed out of them for a reasonable fuel usage, and I think we were using those the custom where are we, using the combustors and fuel injectors on the small jet engines, you can get a respectable performance in a fairly compact size. But if you want to go for real high speed, then it's still the big jet engines, as you can see here. But yeah, you can see this would need some ions. Now, a couple of things before I go on. This I've just done like a 50-50 ratio in general on compressors, combustors. I'm sure people have worked out different ratios might be a better performance. I'm not min-maxing the absolute out of best jet engines. That's not the purpose on here. This was just to compare, can you use small jet engines economically compared to using a small fuel engine and a jet, or using props. And yes, you can. It does fit in nicely in between, and you can modify it to your heart's content to try and get either more power or more efficiency. You can tune it quite nicely, basically. So that was basically what I was looking at in here, not the best types of jet engines. Some people can spend hours if they want trying every jet engine type and putting it into a graph. If someone has done that, then please post down below and let me know, and I'll people can see the link to it and they can see what is the best best jet engine, shall we say, design, depending if you're after thrust, you know, total amount of thrust out of this, or whether you're after efficiency. So yeah, anyway, that's all I really wanted to say on here on jet engines. I may look, when I start building some ships, on the new blocks, because there is some new under, where are we, air, these new custom wings, which I have had a bit of a play with, and they can be useful in creating things which are a little bit more aerodynamic, but I've had a few problems making them work without adding too much wing lift. I have noticed using these, you end up getting too much lift, and what I ended up doing is just using lots of the control surfaces, the universal control surfaces, and then setting that sorry, this wing unit here, because you can see it's providing lift, but you've got no control. So if you want, if you put too many on, you just want, where is it, the universal surface, and then set it to 0. But it doesn't look as nice and uses more blocks. So if you use these other wing components, such as this custom wing middle here, if I just put that down, it looks nice, but I can't control. It's automatically applying lift, and I don't seem to have any control on that lift. So which then means I've got to add lots of other blocks. Anyway, it's something that maybe needs thinking about. There's no amazing advantage of using a lot of these, except for looks. They do look okay, but they provide too much lift in my view. Whereas in, you know, using the universal, they have just as much drag, or just as low drag, but you can control and balance the plane to make sure that you're not giving the aircraft too much lift. I wish they'd put the universal flight into the custom wings, so you're effectively changing the wings ratio to whether it gives lift or not. Anyway, that was the only thing I had to say on the custom wings. They are interesting for looks, but they have caused me problems at this moment. So that's it on the aircraft now. As always, any comments about the engines? I'm going to get off this plane, because doing rotations like this is annoying me. I'm going to get on one which flies a little nicer, which I like this little custom jet engine here. I think this one's quite good. Anyway, as always, leave the comments down below about the custom jet engines, what you think I missed, if there's another way of working those custom wings. I may look at them when I build some biplanes and some prop fighters, etc. For the campaign later, but generally they're okay, but we're not happy with them. Any other comments on engines? I'll say there's one thing I'll say quickly, and that is the air intakes. I wish there was a way of being able to relocate the air intake, like something that moves this air intake down, like using, oops, let me just get back here, like using ducts, these ducts, but one which is like an S-shaped or too long, so that it actually can supply air above it. I don't know if you see what I mean. So instead of it always having to be in front, this could be located one to the side or one above, etc. Because otherwise all your planes are going to look like these twin-engined F-15s or MiGs with a bloody great big hole straight through the centre to the engine, etc. Whereas a lot of planes nowadays, they have like Typhoon, S-20, F-22, F-35. They have an angled intake, so their intake is below the center point of the jet engine. I would like to see that personally, because then that would allow you some design decisions, rather than having to have the engine in the center of the plane and basically a bloody great big hole in the center of the plane for your air intake. It would be nice to be able to offset it by 1 or 2. As I say, a duct shape might be alright, where you've got a duct, an offset, a duct offset by 1. Hopefully that makes sense of what I'm trying to say and give the impression there. It may not be a big thing, but it's just something I was thinking about on looks wise. I didn't want all of the planes looking absolutely identical, because we want to be able to muck around with design, don't we? So that is, yeah, that's the last thing I'm going to say. I do tend to ramble on, but let me know if you like this. Click a like. Please leave any comments. I'll try and look at another bit that has changed, which is cram cannons, because that's the other bit that changed in the latest update, and I can now, after a few updates, actually access the cram cannon menu and have a look at those points. So that'll be, I think, my next video, just to look at what's changed on crams. So until next time, keep playing the game and have fun.